Can they all hear me? So, hello everyone. My name's David Rose, and today I'll be talking about something called CGI, which stands for Common Gateway Interface. So, I noticed there's a recent trend going on here. Past few months, I've seen people present topics regarding web development, showing pretty cool websites, delving into HTML, JavaScript, CSS, even React. And I've even heard some backend topics. From a few good friends of mine. So I've decided to choose this topic because I want to show everyone how they can build a dynamic website. So when you were all presented on the topics on React and how to write HTML, I noticed that all these websites were pretty much static. And what that means is anyone who makes a request to your website over the browser, anyone who wants to connect to your website and view your website documents, well, they're all just going to get the same response over and over every single time, no matter where you are in the world. You're going to get the same documents. So copy and paste. So today I'm going to talk about how you can serve dynamic content, which allows you, based on your input, to serve a different document per user, depending on what input they decide to send on the browser. So, you want to display data from a SQL database after you verified someone's logged in and sent a query request. Then you can produce a web page and using the document, like an HTML document as a template, and then preparing your database records on a template and serving a customized document to the browser. CGI is an important foundation that we began with, I think, almost 30 years ago. Um, so let me open up my slides. Okay, I need to share my slides really quickly. This is where the share button comes, allow multiple presenters to share. So should I just replace the current share? Might as well share this. Okay, I can't reach my present button. Okay, thank you. Okay, there's a lot of stuff on that screen, but yeah, there, that's better. All right, so today I'll be teaching all of you how to serve dynamic content using CGI. So I've already spent a couple minutes talking about static pages. Basically, back in the day, probably the earliest use cases of the internet was you had a web server that you could connect to with a domain name. And that server is associated with a directory containing subdirectories and documents. And probably those of you who've been around in the early days of internet, that's pretty much what you use the internet for. Just get documents, maybe research papers, someone else's text files, so forth. So what the server does was just to grab the, well, first it has to find the document in your directory. And if it's found, then the server will make a copy of that document and serve it back to your browser as is. Everyone gets the same document, a static web page. Now, if you wanted to build a dynamic web page, you could write a server program that defers requests to scripts or other programs. It could be like an interpreted script, Fortran, or maybe an executable program, something written in machine code already compiled. However, there's one major flaw with all of these different servers and websites. There's mutually incompatible. There's like no consistency between someone's server program and someone's application code. So you couldn't port your machine to anywhere and scale your business when you wanted to. You had to find like a vendor specific machine, or even worse, if you didn't follow any vendor specific software and you wrote your own software, then there's probably no machine in the world that you could port your script to and grow your business. I mean, and that's a major concern, because if you can't grow your business, then you can't make revenue or profit. And who doesn't want to make money? Am I right? So Specifically, there were incompatibilities between the HTTP server and the application. Like when some HTTP binary data came in, I don't really want to go deep in that rabbit hole of talking about the specifics of the HTTP protocol, but when bytes came into your server had to you had to like, program your server to parse those bytes so it can be read by your program. However, which pieces of the bytes are parsed and sent to your application all varied between applications. I mean, you basically had people just taking up their own responsibilities, like someone might implement HTTP in their application. Someone else might defer it to a server and just load balance requests to the application in some other format. So that's where a group of some bright individuals came together. They analyzed what the most common practices were, and they decided to write up a specification that we now know as CGI. So, what is CGI? CGI, or Common Gateway Interface, is not a program or a tool that you can download and run on your machine. It is a written specification, a document that you can read. And like many of these interfaces and protocols, they're basically rules that you have to follow. And they split the certain responsibilities between certain um, pieces of your software in certain layers in your network from other software that runs in different network layers. Um, I'll dive a bit into the network layers momentarily, but I just want to go over the bulletin points. So we decided to come up with a platform independent interface, and this is really important. So we could meet all the portability requirements. So you could finally scale your software, aka move your program from one machine to many machines. And we also wanted to find an easy way to do this. So what the application program should be is simply an external program that you can copy and paste into your server that already has some server software, and you can just run your application. Therefore, your server can finally defer requests to pretty much any script that you had running on some other machine. So my next bulletin point, I presented a link to the current CGI standards version 1.1. That's probably, I think these were written back in 95, and that's probably, to be fair, like the last time they'll ever be updated because we have like so much faster and more modern specifications. So, I mean, if you're interested, I'm sure Zarella or Crystal will present this or share this slide on Discord or on our some other one of our other various social media platforms. Crystal, where will we be sharing this slide on Discord? All right, so go check it out there after tonight if you want to learn more. Or honestly, if you want to look at it now, you can just Google CGI RFC and you'll find these specs on the first page. So another biggie that I have to point out is that the developer is finally able to write a CGI program or script in any language of their choosing. So perhaps this was impossible back in the days where you couldn't port your script to anywhere, but now you can, which relieves a lot of pressure off the developer so they don't have to like worry about picking the right programming language to begin with. If they're most comfortable with the language, they can go ahead and use that language. Again, it all comes around that platform independent interface. It doesn't matter what operating system or programming language you're using. CGI will be able to get your business requirements implemented. So moving forward. So now that I've explained some of the problems we had before, I'd like to explain how CGI actually solves our problems. So it's like I said before, it's going to be a lot easier to build a website using a programming language I'm most familiar with. No longer has the developer need to worry about implementing lower level code at the talking about the network stack. You don't have to worry about implementing stuff from the network layer, the transit layer, not the transit, the transport layer, even at the presentation level. All you have to do is worry about your business requirements, your data processing, your data validation. That's all done within your application. And like I said before, you can reuse your code on any machine, so long as the server that I'll get back to the programming language that I chose for my demonstration when I get to that part. But technically, when you pick a programming language, you have to make sure that there's a server that implements CGI that supports the programming language of your choice. Most modern and popular programming languages should support CGI or its modern equivalent. And I already covered that you can work in the application layer. Again, that's all your data validation and data processing and connecting to your database and so forth. There's like a bunch of use cases I could describe your business, um, but time is limited. So let's me talk about how CGI works. So the script itself is going to be a either it can be if you're working with an interpreted language like Python, it can be just the source code itself or an executable, something compiled in binary, for instance. And this script, this program is going to be located somewhere in your directory, like any one of your other files. And the the directory location of your script is going to be defined in your URI. So, or at the top of your browser. So this example, let's say you have a website, my website, or moisesiscool.com. If you want to generate dynamic content using a script, then in your browser, you have to type in the path to that script. So let's say in my server, I have a folder called CGI bin, and at the subfolders path and two, I have script.cgi. So now the script itself, you had to include the extension in the browser. So pretty much because the browser has to the last after the last // it has to find the file with that exact same name. So that important that the extension matches the extension of your file. So .cgi, I don't think I've seen this .cgi in a few places on the internet, but I don't actually know what's the content of a CGI file because I'm not sure how that gets executed. Um, could be a shell script, but if in my demonstration, if you're probably probably a server configuration. But in my example, I'm using Python. So my file ends in a .py, so I'll be using a .py extension. After the server selects a script is run as an executable program. So depending on how familiar you are with operating systems, you might already know some of the stuff I'm about to say. But when I mean run as an executable program, I mean that the program, the operating system creates a new process. It loads all the memory from the hard drive into your RAM, and then eventually the operating system will run that process. So, and this is a process separate from your server or the process running your application. Um, and you're able to pass input to your script. Obviously, request data can be used as your input, and the specifications explain how you can pass input. And there's also some reserved keywords that you should follow when you're passing input. I'll explain how I pass input in my demonstration later. And after the process ends, the specification defines a set of rules that the application must return, and then the server must use what's taken from returned by the application to prepare HTTP response. And this is we're still in the process. So the server grabs the data from a output stream from the process. The process ends, and then the server prepares the HTTP response, and that's your document, um, your HTML code, and whatever other files are packaged in your request, or not request, or response. Again, I'll demonstrate everything momentarily, and by momentarily I mean now. I'll also explain to you other rules that the application must follow. Let's see. So I'm going to temporarily stop sharing so I can so I can switch to my desktop because I only was sharing my PowerPoint slides. Alt-10. Okay, so on my hard drive, I have this root folder, and in it, pretty much the contents of my website. So there's I have this collection of documents, which are just files, and I have subdirectories, which you can navigate to and download if you were to know what the contents and the file names of my subdirectories were. Mm. Might be better visualization if I also display to you the um, extensions, because you'll sometimes the extensions are required. Um, so I'm just going to run the command to prop up a simple HTTP server using the server module that ships with the standard development kit of Python. And that would be, in my case, I would be using the m parameter to tell Python I'm opening this module, and the name of the module is http.server. And I have to include additional parameter to tell this module that it's expected to run CGI code. Well, not CGI code, but it's expected to, when a request is deferred to a CGI script, it's expected to run the script as a process instead of just downloading the script and sending me the source code. And I don't want that. So now it's running on port 8000. I'm going to go into my browser and go to my index website. And this is my index. So this right here is just a static page. As you can see, it downloaded this index.html file and sent it over to my browser. I'm going to scroll down to a piece of this document where I insert a form, and the form is how I'm going to send input to, this is how I'm going to send input to my script. So I wanted to like include the bare minimum of input fields to kind of demonstrate all of the capabilities of how to send input to a CGI script. So I'm going to enter in a value. So all this script does is just kind of like reproduce my value in a cute format and styling. So I'm just going to enter in a value, something as basic as hello world. Surely you're, surely you're all familiar with what's about to happen. Oh, I misspelled hello. Yeah, spelling is not my biggest suit, as you can tell. Do I want to display this in bold text? Yes, I'll just click yes for now. So give it a bit more flair. And let's enter a font size of 48. I'm going to click let's go, and I get a dynamically generated web page. So as you can see here, so I have some stuff that's part of my template, like form submitted and you submitted whatever I typed in the form, and you can see what I entered appeared twice in the document. And let's say I'm a different user and I want to enter different input. So I can just go back. I can perhaps change something also simple. Um, and I'm entering a different font size. And I get a different form. No more am I getting the same page over and over again. As you can see, this CGI website is generating different documents, dynamic content based off the input I'm using. You'll also see like the parameters. So I'm setting the parameters through query parameters top here, and I'm reprinting them at the top. And the reason you're seeing this print is due to something I'm about to show you in the source code. So let me go to Visual Studio Code. So this tab I have open is pretty much my index page. So that's web page you initially saw. And in the form part of the code, I've entered in the action field, basically the URL I want to defer my request to. So in the folder CGI bin, I have a Python script called user-form.py. So every time I submit this form, it sends its data to this file. And let me show you the contents of this program. So first off, this is probably not relevant to CGI, but in general, the first line of code is I have comment out here. It's called a shebang line, and that's required by Unix operating systems if you plan on running these scripts using from a shell or from the command prompt or terminal, because unless you have Python 3 in your path, the operating system won't know which program to run to execute this script. Um, so as I go down the line, you'll see in line 5, I have this print statement where I'm printing content type colon text HTML, and I have a couple new lines. So this is one of the first requirements that the application must meet according to the CGI specifications. CGI requires the application to always include in, well, actually, the very first rule that the CGI requires the application to do is to always print something. You can't have an app that runs without printing anything. Otherwise, you might get an internal server error. So I'm printing something, but I'm not just printing anything. I'm printing the header first specifically. So the second rule that CGI um, mandates is that I include a header and a body in my output stream. And that header and body needs to be separated by an empty line. So and the way I'm separating them in this case is with two new line characters. So you got two empty lines. You clearly have the header and body separated. And finally, the last most important, pretty much there's only like three major rules you need to follow. If you have like more use cases, you might have to follow additional rules according to the CGI specification. But the last major rule they need to follow is one of the headers has to be content type. Content type is a mandatory header. And in this case, I'm providing it and I'm setting it to text as HTML because that's what I'm producing. If I was producing a JSON response, I would use application JSON instead. And like I said before, all this stuff needs to be sent to an output stream. So I'm using print to print all my content to the output stream. So basically anytime I use a print statement, that's going to be what's returned from my process, and it's what's going to be coming over in my HTTP response. So now on line 7, this is where I start to get the input from my user form. So according to CGI, I had to use this environment parameter called query string, because CGI server will store the input in, well, it will store the query parameters in this environment string. I'm basically getting all use add more logic to just parse my input from my query. And then I have this other print statement. So this string of the dictionary is what I'm seeing at the top here. And the reason I received this in my response is because I called the print and I called it after these two new line characters. So any print that I execute in the script after line 5 becomes a part of my body. If I were to comment that line out, that print statement out, these would disappear. So I have some more logic. So this is like the business logic and data validation part of the demonstration. So I have here one of my parameters for my form was the yes or no radio option. Um, and this allowed me to display my text in bold or not. And if the radio option was set to Y, then I would, in this example, set these two parameters to these strings. And here's another data validation rule I have. So I put this rule where if you enter in a text size, check if the number entered is less than 49. Again, you don't want, when you're validating your data, you don't want people just entering in bad data and putting that into your system, which could break your client's data. So I'm limiting the input to 49. I could also add another condition where to check that the number is greater than 0, so they don't enter a negative number. But I'll leave that as an exercise for all of you. Yep, that's right. You all have homework tonight. So obviously, I'm just getting the input, saying this size, and if the data is not valid, then I just use the default 12. And so here's where the the dynamic part comes in. So in the style parameter, in the style variable, I'm just generating this CSS string. So I've appended the size to this string, and in the output, that's going to produce font size colon 12 px. So if you paid attention to that CSS demonstration 2 months ago, not sure if it was July or June, but if you paid attention, you would know that this will affect the font size of the text. And then this content variable. So this is a formatted string, and the value of the string looks like an HTML document. And the reason I have this HTML document in this string is because I'm printing it to my output stream. So it gets sent back over the web as a document. And I'm constructing this HTML document along the way. So I'm including the style in between these two style tags. So, and what this format allows me to do is allows me to include any variable I defined in my script as long as I surround it with brackets. So basically anything in brackets is logic that Python's going to execute. In this case, it's just going to fill this in with this string. That's what this style surrounded in brackets will do. And then I have some more logic here. It's not very complex logic. All I really use is just looking up this dictionary and then filling in the value in this string. So you submitted blank in your form, whatever I entered in my whatever I entered in the first position in my params list will be filled in the string. And again, bold 1 and bold 2, either in my previous logic, those values are either empty strings or they're set to these values, the B and the /B, and that will be filled into my string. And finally, I'm printing that string back to my output stream. And pretty much that's my entire script. Pretty short. I wanted to keep it simple. Um, Hopefully everyone followed along. And
So you're building the output, and the output is the file sent to the browser.
yes, the output I'm storing it in RAM in the form of these variables, and then I send that output into the output stream via the print method. And so you can see if the actual output that gets sent to your browser, if you were to write, I'm just going to click view page source because this is a very small document. So first thing you'll notice is before doctype.html, since this is required on all documents and it should ideally be the first um, line in your in this view. However, you see that something comes before it. This text surrounded in brackets. Well, you're seeing that because I printed that to the output stream, as you see here on line 5, or not line 5, line 9. Since I printed that, that's part of the output stream, and that's going to be part of the body in my HTTP response. So if you want to debug your web page, you probably should print your variables to somewhere else other than the output stream. Maybe if you have like a special debug stream, you can print your debug values there. But if you print the output stream, it's going to get sent in your HTTP response. So if I were to comment that print line out, I would this would go away. Now there also there's a new line here because I put two new line characters in my to separate my header from the body. See, remember, CGI only requires you to include one empty line to separate your header and body. Anything after that first empty line is automatically part of your body. Um, and I guess the print statement automatically applies a new line character because there's some white space here and at the end. But you can see here in my the rest of the document in the HTML code, everything's been filled in for me. So this 36, that's the number I entered earlier. And you also see greetings here. This is the text I entered. Let me show you an example with the bold characters. So if I were to display in bold and submit my form, now my text is in bold. And go to Control U, and the bold characters have been added for me. So they've been filled in for me. And so if you've worked with CGI in other languages like maybe PHP or Perl, which is probably more widely used back then compared to Python, you would probably see similar code in your script where you have like this template HTML in a string, and then you fill in the string with pieces from your variables, which I like to call your model. I don't really want to dive into MVC, but I'm just calling it model because I'm more familiar with. But pretty much you have your template and you're just filling in the pieces. Well, you're not filling it in. Your Python's filling in for you by executing code on your server. Now I did have plans to host this simple server on the internet using a VPN, but for some reason I'm having problems connecting to that server, its IP and port over the internet. Strangely, it worked from my home because I had a inbound traffic rule applied to just my house IP, and I decided to for this presentation, I decided to open up inbound traffic to everyone in the world, but for some reason, the server's still not um, responding. I'm hosting on AWS, so and I don't have the I can't connect to the server, so and I don't have the primary key, not the primary key. I don't have the PPK file on this computer, so unfortunately, I am unable to make present an interactive demo with my audience. Um, but that's pretty much the end of my demonstration. I have some other buttons and some links that run other CGI scripts, but I didn't really work on them or test them as much as this form, so I'm not going to touch those right now. So let's see if I can get back to my presentation. You have a
So,
question?
an explanation, say, because you're using the CGI tool,
Yes.
that tells the web server, right?
Yes, it tells the web server that you're supposed to execute it. So the reason I included that CGI parameter when I was running up my server on the shell is because I need to, like you said, I need to tell this server that it needs to run these, it creates process and run those programs instead of copy the document and sending it over to me. And the reason I had to name it in a folder called CGI bin is because that's the default location that your server will defer processable requests to. Any other folder would have just served the document, but this Python program at least needs to know the location of all your CGI scripts. They also need to be executable too. So if you're like, you need to give your operating system the permission for this user to execute these programs. You can like, if you rename the folder, you just have to like provide another parameter, or you have to configure your server differently to tell, hey, this is the name of the new directory where I want my CGI scripts. But for the simplicity of this presentation, I just named it CGI-bin. And I can add like subdirectories in there too. So as long as the programs all fall under that root directory, um, this server should execute them. I can also show you what happens if you don't include that parameter. Um, so right now, if you let me refresh this. If you just try submitting your form again, you're actually going to get a copy of that document. So this is my source code. Obviously, it did not execute, and this is probably going to be like pretty bad if you have like sensitive data in your code. So what you want to do is include that parameter. Um, I don't really want to get too much into how to use this module because this is a general demonstration on CGI and not specifically how to use or how to specifically build a dynamic website using Python. So if you do want to learn more, then I recommend using something modern, which is a topic I'm going to go to next because once again, I don't think anyone uses CGI and nothing that I'm showing is production ready. You do not want to implement a production server using the tool I just used to run my server. This is for testing and debugging only. Yeah, so I'm going to close that and go back to my slides.
Python, that meant the server where the script was gonna execute had to have the Python installed on it already.
Yes. And that was this installation of Python, at least the STK that came with it, has this module that I used to prop up a simple HTTP server so I can make HTTP requests to it and get responses back. If you're using
Python server, it's a CGI server that runs Python and
it's a Python server that implements CGI. So if you were to write a Python script on your machine using this server, then you would be able to send me a copy of that script, and I could be able to put it on my machine and run it. You will be able to port your script to my machine.
that's what the programming.
Just Python scripts. If you were to use some other programming language, you would have to use the server that supports that programming language, and most likely that server implements CGI or its modern equivalent.
Literally, browser knows when it reaches out, browser reaches out to the web server. And in his case, he has a web server on his machine. It knows that Python's on there because I went to the CGI bin. No, it's a web server on this machine. Browser talks to the web server on this.
Mhm.
Or
Have a header. So you can put in as many, you can make as many print statements, and those are all going to be your headers up until your first new line character, and that's going to be the end of your header section. And after any print statements after that's going to be part of your body. And in the header, content type must always be included, unless you're working with redirects, then you have other requirements to meet. But in this most cases, all like 200, 400 response codes are you have to use content type. So finally, let's talk about where we've gone from CGI. Now, obviously, no one's going to pick CGI unless someone contract you to CGI and they're not paying you, and or someone's contracted you to build a dynamic website and they're stiffing you off, and you want to give them the most terrible experience ever. Obviously, if you're well respected and making a lot of money, you're going to pick one of today's modern alternatives. So but first, let's talk about some setbacks that we faced with CGI. Even though the portability aspect that CGI gave us may have helped you expand your business, it's not um, as scalable as I was mentioned earlier. Why? Because, like I said before, you're creating a new process. And if you've taken a class in operating systems, especially mine class when I was in college, you might know how heavyweight creating a new process is. So, your operating system, that means when it creates a new process, it has to grab data from, it has to read from your disk, put all of that stuff into your RAM, and then it has to go, it has to allocate memory for your program. It has to get put on the scheduler, and then you're at the mercy of the scheduler to run your process for you. And after your process runs, you have a whole bunch of garbage collection. That varies by operating system, but basically, I mentioned a lot of processes that happen to you, a lot of steps that are required, which is pretty much overhead. You're all very familiar with overhead and how much you want to avoid it. Well, there's a lot of overhead going on here. Now, my example is very fast because I'm on my local machine and I'm the only one using my computer. So not a whole lot of resources are being consumed. But if you have like thousands of requests coming in per hour, you're going to overwhelm your operating system very quickly, especially if you have limited RAM. Like for example, I was going to my interactive demo was going to be using a VPN that only had like 500 megabytes of RAM, and that usually took around 5 or 6 seconds to run when I tested it from my computer, and I was the only user. So obviously, 10 users and your business is down. Um, an alternative to that, something that we've come from since processes. Java, or the people who wrote Java introduced the Java virtual machine. And when JVM was around, when it was built, people wanted to use CGI in there too. So a group of people built Java Servlet. And Servlet is an interface, although there's a little bit more code involved than just a written document. So Java Servlet, what it does is it's the analogous of the CGI that I demonstrated. What it does in Java, at least, what it does is creates threads instead of processes, and not just threads. It creates virtual threads, which are much more lightweight compared to a process running in an operating system. And I think if you're a Java enterprise developer, this is what they currently do to this day. They still whenever if you're using a website run on Java, then you're deferring requests to threads instead of processes. So every request, a new thread is created. And then um, as long as you follow the servlet rules, when that thread ends, you get a document sent back to you. So obviously, I already pointed out that you can't scale to a huge number of requests. One solution to this might be offloading your requests to a load balancer that then, in perhaps a round robin fashion, or maybe your load balancer is configured to find the a server that's taking up the least amount of resources. Your load balancer will direct the request to another server, which will consume less memory, use fewer applications or steps, or both. This is obviously since you're taking the load off of your main server, where you might have your static pages that don't require a whole lot of that it definitely doesn't require starting a new process. If you're starting a static page, that's all going to happen in your web server process. All it does is copy the page and sends it to you. But if you're deferring requests to an executable, and you can just send it to the load balancer, and the another server will take care of it for you. Um, that's I'm not a cloud engineer, but I'm pretty sure there's a term for this kind of architecture. Let me know in the comments if you know that term. And finally, I'm going to close off. Well, I have a couple more things, but getting close to the end here. So obviously, if you're not careful, you're going to have like a lot of vulnerabilities exposed in your web app, such as code injection attacks. For example, it might, since I don't have time, I'm not going to talk about a real world example, but if I were to go back to my previous, where's my, if I were to go back um, to my source code here, I can, you notice how I can like type in any text in my first input fields where I like type hello world. Well, I can also type XSS code, cross-site scripting, because this program is not sanitizing my input. Or, well, to prevent XSS, you can actually just HTML encode all your input. In here, I'm not doing that. So,
JavaScript alerted bugs.
yeah, I was going to do that now, actually. But I wanted to first show you in my code that I have no sanitation. So that means CGI is inherently insecure. Um, like a lot of these protocols are not really secure. You have to kind of use more. You kind of have to make sure that you're not running sensitive user, well, not user data, but untrusted data and low level parts of your network. Otherwise, you could compromise some part of your system. But obviously, there's no code in here. Then there's nothing that in CGI that requires security. So I can just do an XSS attack on my own website. Let me show you that after I run my server again. Um, let's see. Oh, typo. Okay. So if I were to enter an alert, well, first to conduct this XSS script attack, I would have to start my text with a bracket, then type script, closing bracket, and then executable JavaScript code. So I can type in alert test XSS, closing parentheses, and then I have to end my text with a bracket / script. And as you can see, my browser just ran this code. And that's because if I go to, it ran it twice because I think I like printing the same thing multiple times. If I go to my browser, so you can see the script appeared in 3 different locations. So it ran 3 different times. And the browser will, since this appeared in my document, the browser will run anything in between these script tags. So I'm not going to get into preventive measures now because I notice we're almost out of time. However, I want to leave off on this note. A more practical example of XSS attack would be a simple redirect that might redirect your browser to a phishing website, which is a website that looks really similar to the website you're expected to see, but maybe there's like a character slightly different in the URL in your domain, and that website, whoever wrote it, is intended to is trying to steal your credentials. Like maybe you get this it tells you to enter in your login credentials, and that's how you get your personal. That's how you get like your identity stolen, and your yeah, pretty bad stuff. So I bet there are like a lot of phishing attacks when XSS vulnerability was discovered on eBay. a long time ago. Not sure who remembers that story. But let me go back to my slides. Just want to point out that CGI is not is not like vulnerable free. You always have to make sure you're meeting your security requirements and keeping your customer secure on the web. Um, but I do want to close on those who are still interested in building a website with Python. Um, what Python users use is a protocol called, or another series of document instructions, like CGI, called the Web Server Gateway Interface. And what this allows, well, the reason this was built was to allow Python users to be able to use a Python server without having to worry about selecting the correct framework. So if you've used built Python websites before, you might be familiar with Flask or Django. Well, you couldn't really port Flask apps or Django apps on different Python machines. So we wanted a platform independent interface so we could meet the portability requirements. So we came up with the web server gateway interface. And this is production ready protocol that you can use to deploy your apps to production. Um, there are, of course, other tools you need to use and different ways to configure those, but that's easily another topic. So I'm not going to discuss that tonight. These are my references. And that's the end of my presentation. So I'd like to open the floor to questions. If you think I wasn't clear on something or if I talked about something too fast, please why don't you go ahead and raise your hand. Is but really quickly, Crystal, is there anyone on the call who had a question? All right, John, did you have a question? Not just yet. Let me guess, it was on the tip of your tongue, but slipped your mind. Well, if I pull up that server again, I can actually show you the network traffic and the actual response that I get in the browser. So, oh no, not Norton again. Thank you, Norton, for keeping me secure. I go to inspect, and if I go to network, now I'm not going to show right now because I didn't have the network logs running. But if I run my server again, multi-form, isn't that a accept parameter? I'm not using multi-form. Yeah. Okay. They probably should have used something else. You can actually, so most browsers, if you inspect the element, they have this feature where you can view the headers of your, so I believe this is, here's your request stuff, and then you can see the response headers here. So here's my content type. And nope, CGI doesn't require you to surround it in anything special. They just want you to print content type, colon, space, and the value of your content, your MIME value. In this case, text HTML. I guess the browser or the server. So I think the server added these two response headers. Yes, I'm not sure if the CGI requires a server that does this stuff. I only focused on the application stuff.
Serves identifying itself in the response process. That's why it's response.
Right. Pure so. But does this clear up things for you? Does anyone else have any questions? No. Well, I'm glad everyone got on the first go. means I don't have to start all over again. But yeah, if no one has any questions,
If you go click on the payload tab,
yeah.
look through the different parts.
I'm just sending just sending
Yeah.
query parameters, nothing, no like multi-part form submissions or
You
anything.
can see
Hmm.
tax and so on. So it's understanding the different parts of a request and a response in the HTTP protocol, what you need to learn ways to attack without being visible. Thank you for that.
Yep. Although I kind of just want to point out the how CGI was like not it's just the inherent vulnerability CGI comes with just before you decide to when you get up tomorrow to build a new website using CGI and put it on the web. I just want to warn everyone that it takes a lot more than just copying what I showed today to build something reliable on the web. I didn't really want to spend too much time in going over a security lecture, but that's just one of the many vulnerabilities that's just one of the many attack vectors associated with CGI.
Needless to say, you've gone back to the beginning of time, it's for me. And it was understanding this was one of the first things done. You had HTML, and it's like it's all scalable. How do we make it work for
Did
other
I make your life flash before your eyes? Yep. Yeah, we've come a long way from CGI, and there's probably better technologies I could have demonstrated on. Maybe when I get another chance, I can show something using a standard that's currently being used today. That's obviously it's better and more secure. Mm, yeah, you can. Yep, those are some of CGI successors. I mean, we've come a long way from this first protocol, fast CGI. Um, a lot of these protocols still had like CGI in the name, like in the prefix or suffix. Fast CGI is like the only one I remember. And right now, for Python users at least, you can use WSGI. And there are servers that you can use like Apache and Nginx that allow you to use WSGI if you use Python as your backend application. So
they will have features disabled. CGI will be one of them. Like the new IIS server, I believe it comes disabled along with other things. You have to explicitly say, hey, we got an old website from 1990. We need to stand up on it. They have to configure it to load that other stuff in. So that would work because they're designed out of the box down to stop using certain old things that are wrong.
I think most popular out of the box tools allow you have to configure all your protocols. Otherwise, you're just going to have a static web page. Yeah. Well,
Not even like a LAMP stack. I don't think I've ever interacted with using CGI on a LAMP stack.
have you built a production? Have you built a production ready website? And was that a production ready website? You were able to just deploy over the internet? Well, there are probably some background. There's probably services. Well, that all depends on your again, that all depends on your business and use cases. Sometimes you may need additional configuration to meet your needs. And that either requires modifying special configuration files, and sometimes some libraries allow you to configure server right from the code itself. Although I think my company, we kind of configure some servlet related stuff in the code in a class because we program in Java. But I think most libraries are now moving away from configuring your server and using annotations and moving towards a configuration file like an XML or something else special. I'm pretty sure nowadays you're just gonna find bots that people you see traffic. Hmm. Yeah, I'm probably gonna be a bot though, from what people told me.
AI stuff. To try and minimize the surface of attack for scrapers and bots. Problem is some of the AI things, not necessarily ChatGPT, but as they're building their models, they're going out and scraping websites. And if you have a robot.txt file, for example, to say you can't scrape the site, the new AI stuff is saying like, we're going after it. That kind of.
That's really interesting to know. All right. Well, if no one has any more questions, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to my presentation and also for providing your insights and even teaching me a new thing or two. So thank you very much. And we'll be having dreams all night long. We'll be having flashbacks with my face in your dreams tonight.
I want to thank you all again for joining us tonight. We have the room for about 5 more minutes, so feel free to go ahead and talk. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and stop the Zoom meeting as well. Thank you to everybody online who joined us as well.